And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi everyone, Meteorologist Joel Curtis here with your aviation weather. The forecasts were issued Thursday, April 10th. Starting out with our flying weather Friday morning. We've got some IFR along the north slope, mostly marginal VFR for the northern third of the state. Some IFR from fog and low clouds in the central interior. Marginal VFR for much of the remainder of the central interior and on down to the Gulf Coast. For most of the Gulf Coast, marginal VFR, higher terrain, IFR for southeast Alaska. Also some IFR along the west coast, particularly touching land at Cape Romanzoff. Most of the Bering Sea, marginal VFR. Then for Friday afternoon, some IFR remaining over the Brooks Range. We also have marginal VFR for the North Slope on down through the central interior and down to the Gulf Coast. Much of southeast Alaska in marginal VFR. Also marginal VFR along the Alaska Peninsula, out the eastern Aleutians and out the Aleutian Chain, and most of the Bering Sea under marginal VFR. For Saturday morning, some IFR along the North Slope as well as the Brooks Range. Again, the northern third of the state under marginal VFR. Also some areas of the central interior in marginal VFR and down through south central. Part of Cook Inlet looks to be VFR. Marginal VFR for southeast Alaska. Some IFR along the Alaska Peninsula and barely touching into the eastern Aleutians and much of the Bering Sea under marginal VFR conditions on Saturday morning. For Saturday afternoon, extensive IFR along the west coast, southwest coast, into Bristol Bay area, also some for the Alaska Peninsula, also the east side of Lower Cook Inlet, as well as Kodiak Island, up to the eastern part of the Kenai Peninsula and out over the Gulf. Some over the Brooks Range, IFR, and into the eastern North Slope, and marginal VFR again over much of northern Alaska and also the Bering Sea, and then marginal VFR for southeast Alaska. So now let's take a look at Anaktuvik Pass. We've got turbulence expected in the afternoon, a little bit of wind up there, crosswind of the pass itself. IFR conditions all day. The same thing for Adigan Pass with a little bit of turbulence, at least a light chop. For Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, expecting some turbulence in the morning. Marginal VFR in the morning becoming VFR in the afternoon. Also for Rainy Pass, a marginal VFR with turbulence in the morning. Windy Pass, a marginal VFR. Isabel Pass, IFR in the morning becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon. Mentasta Pass, a marginal VFR. For Tahitna Pass, marginal VFR. Portage Pass, marginal VFR throughout the day. Chilkoot and White Pass, IFR becoming marginal VFR in the afternoon, and probably a little bit of light chop starting up in the afternoon. For our freezing level Friday morning, you got to scratch your head and say, does this chart look like April? A week ago when I did the show, it was much more complex with a lot of temperature inversions. Very, very cold aloft in the upper low over St. Lawrence Island, and some barely above 2,000 feet or so for northwest Canada and way south of the Aleutians. So that sets up our icing situation. Expecting an area of considerable moderate, 4,000 to 14,000 over southeast Alaska. Lots of isolated moderate all the way up in a swath up to Kotzebue Sound. Right for the northwest central interior in some snow. We got some considerable moderate. That'll be freezing level up to 8,000 feet, usually from the surface. And then also what we've got is, again, for southwestern Alaska, particularly Nunivak Island, and brushing up against the Pribilofs, freezing level again to 8,000 feet, considerable moderate. So for our jet stream on Friday, Westerly jet crossing the Alaska Peninsula, about 100 knots or so, and down along the south end of the Gulf. And a northerly jet from Siberia on down to the central Aleutians, about a peak wind of about 105 knots or so. For a 9,000-foot wind circulating around the low, which has moved now south to off of Nunivak Island, about 40 knots southerlies as you get up to the shoreline there, but generally northerlies on the west side of that, up to 50 knots, some northeasterlies up to 40 knots in the western Aleutians, and then you can see some westerly winds all across, ranging up about 30 knots or so. Also in the morning, the Central Brooks Range is going to have about 25 knots or so, as well as the western part of Cook Inlet, probably around 25 knots for a little light turbulence there. And then for our 3,000-foot winds, by the afternoon, things have calmed down over much of the state. Still some northerlies about 35 knots out in the Bering Sea and the far western Aleutians, and then just south of the Panhandle up to about 45 knots or so. So this sets up our turbulence. So surface to 4,000 feet in the early morning hours for the Central Brooks Range, that was Adigan and Anatuvik Pass area, and then the same thing for Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, a little bit of isolated moderate. But then as you get down across the Alaska Peninsula, surface about 4,000 feet in the central part of the peninsula and also out over the central Aleutians, as well as the southern part of the Panhandle, surface to about 4,000 feet over Prince of Wales Island, on up into Ketchikan and Dixon Entrance. So that's it. Please fly safe out there. Snow showers can make the conditions go from VFR to low IFR very, very quickly. So please get your updated forecasts as soon as you can tomorrow morning if you're going to go out and fly. And be sure to file a flight plan and fly safe out there.